Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We are talking about abortion laws and the impact of that new abortion law in Texas. We have with us Francie Hunt. She is the executive director of the Tennessee Advocates for Planned Parenthood. As I said at the top of the show, we've had people from the other side of this issue on, lawmakers and others in the past, and we will in the future. And we're talking with Francie Hunt tonight. I'm glad she is here. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Charles. Hello, Charles.
No, this is Reverend Fuzz, Dan.
Reverend Fuzz, my goodness, so good to, I didn't know it was Reverend Fuzz. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, Francie Hunt.
Hello, Reverend Fuzz. Nice to hear you.
Couple of questions, Dan.
Okay, go ahead.
50 years I've been in the ministry, and of course, I've had to counsel abortion issues coming up. Women who were wondering, and the parents, I want my child to have an abortion. I've had a couple of cases where I had to wonder, was this an abortion or was this an extortion? Neither here nor there from the dad. But in the two cases where they decided not to get an abortion, I've watched those children grow up. And they're beautiful children. And the parents are really happy that they did not get an abortion. And almost every day I drive by 18th in Charlotte and you see protest signs out there, people holding signs saying they kill babies here. So here are my questions I'm going to put before you. I think the law in Texas is kind of frivolous. I feel like that the rich, you mentioned that lawmakers forcing their will on people. They're not going to force their will on the rich. Those rich people who need an abortion, it appears that they're going to be able to get what they want. And the poor are the ones who are left with this. But here's my question, Francie. What are two top reasons that people get an abortion, okay? I mean, is it rape, incest? I don't know what it is. I hear y'all say these things, but what are two reasons that people use that they want to get an abortion, and at the same time, where they didn't get an abortion, I've watched a couple of beautiful children come out of that live. But what are two reasons they use to get an abortion?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes, Reverend Fuzz, thank you. Reverend Fuzz, thank you for calling in. All right, let's talk about that. Francie Hunt, what... so you heard his entire question?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
I think Reverend Fuzz asks a really great question, and he made some excellent points. I mean, he's right that the people that are going to be most impacted by the banning of abortion will be the folks with the fewest resources. That's absolutely spot on. The other point I want to underline before I answer his question, the other point he raised was about how people choose to have children, actually. And that's also like a really amazing way of looking at why having choice is so important. I recently spoke to somebody who, some random woman that I met in the park recently, and she learned that I work with Planned Parenthood, and so she started talking about her choice that, she was a single mom. She knew that she didn't want to have any kind of long-term relationship with a father for lots of other reasons. And she said she really thought about having an abortion. But then she decided that she was going to have a child. And she said that's why she's so pro-choice, because the weight of actually deciding to have a child versus having the government say that's your only choice was so resonant with me. So to your question, Reverend Fuzz, which is an excellent question, why women have that, why do they choose to have an abortion? I think that we need to break apart some of the stereotypes about who gets abortions. I think a lot of people have the stereotype that it's some loose woman, young teenage person that's just, promiscuous, and that's why they're using it as birth control. The fact is, the people who are having abortions are typically married. They have met children already. And so the true answer is that they're weighing what is it going to take to raise their children in the best environment possible? The other reason, and there are a multitude of reasons, by the way, and they all have merit and respect, are people who are trying to figure out their own life path, and raising a child at that time of their life is not part of where their life is meant to be led. And so, and a lot of those decisions are absolutely made in prayer and with a deep connection to their faith and their God to come to that decision. And so I think that needs to be really respected. And so I really appreciate that question.
He did hit on, and you mentioned, rich people, how this will impact them versus poor people. And if you want to expand on that, he said it won't impact rich people, but it will impact poor people. And
right.
What about that?
Well, it will impact poor people because they're not going to be able to access care. They're going to go into forced parenthood is what's going to end up happening. But if you've got resources, you can fly to Mexico, you can fly to another state, you can stay there. And if that state has a 48-hour waiting period, you can stay there for a couple hotel nights and you can eat. And maybe you could take some days off work. Well, not everybody has vacation days, and not everybody can pay for a $300 a night hotel room and a $600 flight, not to mention, the cost of an abortion. So, that is prohibitive to a lot of people who don't have resources. And so
okay.
hugely problematic.
Let's go to Joy. Hello, Joy.
Hello.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Okay, I have several questions. First, I want to make a statement. I think the only way to kill someone or take a life of someone is if your own life is being threatened, and therefore the mother's life is being threatened, and a doctor, says that. I think that would be okay. But I have other questions, like legal questions, like does the unborn child have no legal rights, like it's a person? And then why does the mother have the right to abort a child? And why is the father of that child charged with murder of the unborn child if he does something to hurt the mom and the child dies too? And if it's okay for the mother and it's not murder for the mother, why is it murder when the father does the same thing and takes the life? And the last thing, why do you not get your tubes tied or use birth control if you do not want to have children, or for some other reasons, other than your life being threatened?
Okay. All right, Joy, thank you. There's a lot there. I'm sure other people have those questions. What do you have to say there about what Joy's asking?
Yeah, I really appreciate Joy asking the questions that she's truly curious about. So thank you. And I appreciated, you starting off kind of thinking about the exceptions in which an abortion might be appropriate. Like if their life were under duress or under threat, or they would risk their own life. And I think that raises the point that abortion actually is not as black and white as people like to think that it is. There is a lot of complexity, and there are truly situations where the pregnant person's life may be in danger, and so the abortion might be the safest thing for them. It also might be in some situations. I've talked to so many people in these situations where having an abortion was actually the more compassionate choice for the baby that may have been born to suffer and then eventually die under some extreme circumstances. So again, I appreciate, Joy, you kind of bringing up that level of complexity. I think the question about because it's a fair question, gosh, who wants to go have an abortion, right? It would be much easier if you could just make sure that you don't have any kind of unintended pregnancy. And to that we agree. If we can prevent, I think that's an area where we could certainly unite around, which is let's devote our resources and thinking about what can we do to truly prevent unintended pregnancies. And birth control, as you mentioned, Joy, you're right, is one of those things. Unfortunately, we also know that birth control is not always 100% effective. And so there's that. And, you know, but I think there's a lot of room for people to become more educated about how birth control works. There's so many kinds of birth control, and not every birth control is right for every person. So there's an individual healthcare aspect there. Again, that has to be made in that private relationship between that physician and that patient. You know, there's an affordability, issue there. You know, birth control pills, for example, are not something they're not cheap. You know, there are those kinds of considerations. I think making sure that it's accessible. But I think most importantly, making sure that there is good, comprehensive sexuality education so that people actually can make medically informed decisions about their lives. So I think that there's a lot there that can be addressed for sure.
So we're talking about this Texas law. And that law, what if a woman is raped? What are the provisions in there if a woman is raped?
There are no exceptions. There are no exceptions for rape or incest in the Texas law, or in fact the Tennessee law.
And all right, why? Well, I guess I think we've had people on the show and they say, well, that's just hard to determine. Are you surprised there's no exception in there for rape? What if there is an incest type situation?
Well, I mean, all I can think about is perhaps Governor Bill Lee and the Tennessee State Legislature think that even in a situation where you're raped, you should be forced to become a parent of that rapist child.
And is that, I guess, where do you go from here? I mean, is that an area you're trying to get changed, or I guess you're trying to get the whole thing changed? It's mainly a court battle now. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think for folks that are, this is a special message to folks that are like me, up in arms about the danger of what can go down here in Tennessee and across America, which is, you know, our rights don't only rest on the Supreme Court. It always rests in our own power as people to use our vote and our voice and have a strong advocacy around the needs. That's always going to be the one thing that makes the most difference. But it is a legal battle, absolutely, in the Supreme Court, you know, with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, and then the new appointments of Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Coney Barrett. We have a very different makeup of the Supreme Court, which, when they start talking about, taking on these cases and considering the constitutionality of it, it's pretty alarming. One of the things I think, we're, definitely watching is whether or not Tennessee is going to take on any kind of copycat bill. I know that Governor Bill Lee, I read where he had said that he wasn't considering any kind of copycat legislation in Texas until the Sixth Circuit made their ruling. Well, since then, the Sixth Circuit has made its ruling. It passed in our favor so that health care can still be provided here, abortions can still be provided here in Tennessee. And we can expect that they will appeal at that point. So I think it's a critical time for people to be raising their voices. I invite everyone to join us for the rally and march for abortion justice on October the 2nd. There are a multitude of organizations nationally and within the state of Tennessee. There's going to be a march and rally in every single state in the United States on October the 2nd. There are going to be 7 of them here in Tennessee on October the 2nd. and our flagship one here in the nation's the state's capital in Nashville. And so people are welcome to find us and join our efforts. You can just put in, look up Tennessee Advocates for Planned Parenthood, and you can get details on that.
Okay.
Or go to womensmarch.org.
All right, we will take a break, come back, continue the discussion. Take a break. Be back right after this.